feature presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled movie review. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside. He's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved. Eric Marchin.
You can't fake
cashews.
that. You can't fake that on a true crime podcast, Matt.
I was trying to do my This American Life NPR voice.
Yep. I got it.
But I had cashews still in my mouth. So, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm glad that you were not choking. I also like
ready for
your
a BJ?
Professional. Sure. Always.
Today we are reviewing BJ Novak. That's where that came from. Vengeance, directed by BJ Novak, written by BJ Novak, starring BJ Novak, and produced by Jason Blum. Also starring Boyd Holbrook, Dove Cameron, Issa Rae, Ashton Kutcher, J. Smith Cameron.
Whataburger.
Yeah, Whataburger. Main star Whataburger. Eric, I did already ask you, but how you doing today? We just recorded our first solo episode of TIFF Talk 2022, where we cover all the gala and special presentations announcements. So you guys can go check that out. That should be out right now on the Untitled Movie Podcast channel. But how are you doing?
I'm doing 100%, Matt. 100%.
Did you think about us throughout the whole movie?
The whole time I was like, yeah. I can't. It's taking me out of the film, especially with the true villain of the movie, John Mayer.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, I was thinking about us quite a bit. If people were our longtime listeners, they might know that one of our OG catchphrases was 100%, because Eric and I would literally say that to each other all the time. So a movie about podcasts where the characters say 100% a lot, as well as go to a burger joint, and a burger joint being a prominent feature of this movie. Eric,
in one scene.
What the hell is Vengeance, and what did you think of it?
Yeah, so you mentioned that this is BJ Novak's feature-length directorial debut, which he also wrote and stars in. It's a Jason Blum production, but it's not necessarily a traditional horror movie. It's more of a kind of light genre film with the true crime component coming through. Novak,
social satire.
Yeah, Novak plays a sort of player, aspiring podcaster and New York City writer. He works for the New Yorker, but he wants to write a piece about the American divide, specifically liberals versus conservatives, Republicans versus Democrats. And he sees his opportunity come together when one of his flings mysteriously dies of an opioid overdose, which the family asks him to come to Texas to attend the funeral because they believe that Novak was actually much closer to the deceased Abby Shaw, who he really wasn't. He didn't really know anything about her. It was just kind of a one-night stand kind of thing at best, even though there are some texts and things like that.
It might have been a multiple night stand, but it was a nightstand.
Yeah, there's not much of a relationship there, and that's kind of like the sort of the pitch or the idea that Novak came up with initially, you know, having somebody attend someone else's funeral that they didn't really know, but the family or the people that are mourning this person believe him to be an important figure in this person's life. And from there, you know, he gets the idea, Novak, to follow the lead and follow the characters that he interacts with in West Texas when talking to Boyd Holbrook, who plays Ty, the brother who's kind of your classic rootin' tootin' gung-ho, you know, shoot first, ask questions later type, who believes that Abby was murdered. And from there, you kind of get this neo-noir kind of story where Novak is recording all these interviews and he's sending them to a potential producer played by Issa Rae, who's kind of giving him advice as a podcaster along the way and is listening in on the stories. There's some interesting stuff there where, like, Ray will press play on a specific audio file, and then the scene starts, which I thought was really interesting and well done.
Yeah.
And from there, you kind of are introduced to an idiosyncratic amount of characters, whether it be the Shaw family or Ashton Kutcher in probably his best performance of his entire career as a
I
record
agree.
producer.
Yeah.
Um, it's a movie that is very surprising, and I think why I liked it so much is the character is obviously trying to take this kind of very broad approach of sort of, finding the story of the disconnect with America and why
Yeah.
certain parts of the world, or parts of the country and even the world nowadays are, kind of divided in the way that they are, and looking at ethics and points of view and perspectives and what we're saying as a country as a whole. And then you have this really interesting kind of subplot of, this interloper coming in and trying to exploit a very tragic situation. And from there, I mean, the story is very much, an asshole who becomes less of an asshole, but it's done in
Yeah.
a way where it's like expect the unexpected and always be surprised by where the story goes.
Yeah, I'm 1,000% with you. I think you nailed it.
100%.
1,000% this time. Yeah, 100%. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, I like that fish out of water asshole kind of taking advantage of this small town Texas family, and I like the juxtaposition between the liberal soft boy coming in from New York and learning the Texan way kind of thing, and drop in and thinking it's all kind of strange how they act, and how many people in the US, the two sides view each other, which I think, and not just the US, I think in Canada we have that too, with areas of Canada, and the coastal sides of it versus middle America and middle Canada and stuff like that. Like, and I think using that podcast angle was actually quite clever, and I'm kind of with you where I was just like pleasantly surprised throughout the same thing throughout the entire thing. Like, I thought it never kind of maybe goes super deep into anything that it's saying, but I thought, its satire that it's showcasing to you was clever and kind of engaging and funny and interesting and charming at times, and then disturbing at times. And I just felt like it, thoroughly enjoyable. And I thought BJ Novak kind of crushed it for out of the gate for his first movie. And the thing that did stand out to me was I love the family dynamic. It always went to places that weren't necessarily, you mentioned surprising, and so have I, but like surprising in a way that was also surprising, if that makes sense. Like,
It's more
in the sense,
complex
like,
than you would think,
yeah,
that, the way that the caricatures or stereotypes of
yeah,
redneck Republican types are usually portrayed. I when talking to you, and even in my Rogers review, I said that this does what Don't Look Up failed
yeah,
to do, because it's a film that isn't necessarily just preaching to the choir being
hmm,
a liberal elite, the coastal
yeah,
elite. It's actually making complex characters out of, the South, and it's actually
yeah,
showing that these people are more layered as individuals. And yes, they do have flaws, and there are things about them that you cannot kind of, just blatantly shrug aside, especially
yeah,
what's going on right now with, like the US Supreme Court and things like that. But
yeah.
at the same time, Novak does something a lot more intelligent than what Adam McKay does, and that
Yeah.
is he doesn't just write them off. He
I
shows
think that was
these
the
people
most
as
surprising thing to
characters.
me. Yeah. And that's what was, I was pleasantly surprised throughout, because I think I was expecting more of the one-sided element of it, where they are portrayed in a certain way, and I guess I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but the family is much more nuanced than that, and I feel like they start out as caricatures and they want you to think that way. Um but the more time you spend with that family and the more you learn about them, yes, I agree with you that it is showcasing, I think, both sides in a fairly honest way, where it's like there are some good and some bad on both sides of things. They're not just saying everyone is awful. It's more so saying the other thing of like, not everyone is awful, and there are some elements that everyone's just human. And I think that means a good thing and a bad thing from from all the characters throughout the movie. And I think that's, perfectly summed up in that last act and stuff like that, which we won't get into. But yeah, that's, I think, was the most surprising thing about the movie, where I found myself going, oh, okay, you're seeing another, especially from us, we live in a big city in North America, much like Novak's character does. I haven't spent much time in Texas or Calgary or or anything like that. Like, I just, you view it in movies, in different things, or what you read online and how people are portrayed. And yeah, there's a big section of people that contribute to some of the shittier aspects of these areas, of saying, I don't want to visit Texas for this reason, X whatever, because of the Supreme Court, because of their gun laws and all this kind of stuff. But it was interesting seeing that world and seeing a character that's probably more like us dropped into that situation, and seeing how he deals with it, how he tries to exploit them, but tries to make himself feel better about it throughout the whole thing, or feel like he's doing a good thing, or showcasing them for a real, you know, of just what I'm kind of talking about, of showing the world what they really are like, or whatever. And even viewing it as that is kind of condescending and interesting throughout the movie, and showing them as characters and not people. And I think the movie flatly, like, blatantly showcases that to you. But yeah, I was just like, I thought it was funny, and without being like, the satire wasn't like opposite of Don't Look Up, that beats you over the head with it. um Again, this isn't necessarily going super layered with it, but like, it is kind of showcasing it in an interesting way. And I thought, going back to Ashton Kutcher as well, to focus on him for a second, like, I was blown away by him throughout the whole movie. Like, the moment he comes on screen, he just kind of owns it. And like, you could see even BJ Novak's character being taken aback by him. And like, I just was like, damn, Ashton Kutcher is fucking great in this movie. And I'm like, good for him. Like, it's a guy that I've always kind of liked. um I was a huge That 70s Show fan, and I know he had The Ranch on Netflix for a while, but all the Danny Masterton stuff kind of cloudied that. And I think The Ranch was going on up until like a couple years ago. But he hasn't been in a movie in a good amount of time. And a big chunk of my youth with That 70s Show and Dude, Where's My Car, and even something like Butterfly Effect, when he tried to do something a little bit more I guess, quote unquote, serious. Like, I've always kind of liked that guy, and he just felt so natural in this role as this Texan record producer. And he plays it so perfectly, and he has such a great monologue in the last act of the movie, that I was just like, damn, Ashton Kutcher, you got it, man. Like, you still have it. And not that I said he had it before, but he always worked in those roles that I mentioned. Like, he's so good at as Kelso, I think. And like, in Dude, Where's My Car was just a perfect time. Like, I'm sure that movie does not hold up at all. I haven't watched it
Right.
probably in 20 years, and it's probably problematic and not great at times. But I just felt like he absolutely crushed it here.
And he also got kind of put into that like category of they kind of tried to do a little bit of everything with him, where like you mentioned
Even
Butterfly
Punked, I
Effect.
forgot.
Yeah. Oh god, that. Where like you look at things like the rom-com side of him, like they had What Happens in Vegas
Just
with him and Cameron,
Married, right?
Just Married.
Yeah.
With Brittany Murphy, you had No Strings Attached with Natalie Portman, which is one of like those like weird like Mad Libs pairings. I'm not an
Oh,
Ashton
right.
Kutcher
That was
fan.
probably his. Well, Jobs, I guess, was his last
Oh god,
big thing. I
so
forgot
bad.
about Jobs.
So
Yeah.
bad. I'm
Jobs
not a
is
fan.
awful.
I'm
Like,
not a
'cause
fan of Ashton Kutcher, but I agree with you. I think that this performance is so subtle and subdued, and the way that
I
he
guess I'm
like
only a fan. Let me clarify. That 70s Show I really liked.
right,
That's
right.
it. So,
Um,
anyways,
but yeah, he's so subdued, and the way that he plays with the monologues, especially in that scene that you're referring to, reminded me a little bit of Network, and I feel like BJ Novak is taking some influences and references from Patty Chayefsky, with like it reminds you a little bit of like certain scenes in Network, where you get the realization of what it all means, and how kind of depressing it actually all really is in the
yeah.
end, and what it all kind of surmises to. Even there's a really wonderful little moment again that shows kind of the intelligence of the Shaw family, where Paris is talking to Novak, and Novak mentions, again, Tchaikovsky and Chekhov's gun, and
Yeah,
and knows the concept, but has never read, Uncle Vanya, or
it's great. Yeah,
things
and
like that.
then but the
And then,
daughter
but she
had, and she
has, yeah.
references, yeah,
And it's
and
like,
that's the
I'm more
perfect
aware
kind
of
of.
the concept, than
Yeah.
anything else.
And that's perfect, dude. That's just like, don't judge a book by its cover, and you're going to
Yeah.
be a fucking asshole by you're going to reference something you've never even
You're
read.
such a
And then when the
phony.
person, yeah, exactly. And I think that's what the movie does really, really well, is calling out both sides of things, right?
Yeah.
Like,
This also
um,
does and I was worried about this when it first kind of started, and like this, after like the scene with the funeral, I also kind of got Dear Evan Hansen vibes a little bit, where like you have a character coming in who says that they're, you know, attached to this family, or knew this person really well that they were
yeah.
dating and a part of, and like kind of taking advantage of that for, their own personal gain. But this is more kind of like, it never makes Novak's character a saint, and it never makes him kind of the knight in shining armor at the end of the film. Like, he's still kind of a dick. He's still somebody that, like, he's becoming more acclimatized and a little bit more kind of integrated into the family as we go along, but the film never makes him a hero. And I think that that's also really important. There's one thing I have some issues with, that I'll tell you after we've done the review, that might be in spoiler territory, just because it doesn't make sense from a tech side of things. And I think that like somebody would probably do something based on how they handle that. But anyways, I know I'm being cryptic there, but yeah, it's one of those movies that it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but in terms
Yeah.
of the neo noir, postmodern true crime story, it has a good hook. There's an amazing sequence in this film that I think is just on par with Zodiac, where it looks at the sort of frustrating nature of the jurisdictions of departments,
Yeah.
and how like
It's
nobody's
very
able to
funny, but very
collaborate
clever.
with each
Yeah.
other. And it reminded me of Zodiac, because part of why they were never able to catch the Zodiac killer and collaborate is because no department shares information with one another, and it's always passing it off to the other department. It's like, I don't
Yeah.
want to deal with
And I
this. Like,
forget that, like, they're not even this necessarily departments, they're completely different
yeah.
organizations, right? Like, and I forgot that in the US and in Texas and places, like, there are that many different, like, police organizations, right? That all handle different areas or different things. And I think that that was masterfully done, like, in a very funny way, but a very poignant way as well.
Yeah, it's very subtle and sly with that kind of humor, where it is played for big laughs, where the cutting is more showy, where you see him going from one department or judicial system
Organization,
to
yeah.
another
Yeah.
system, and then to another, and it's like, again, like, it's like the idea of just being so frustrated with solving this potential murder, and then looking at it from a bigger point of view, is that nobody's working together, nobody's talking to each other, and it's just basically another kind of tragic story that kind of will be forgotten about in a week. And everybody has their own opinion on it, and the facts will never stick, because no matter the truth coming out, everybody's going to question that, and especially when it comes to the truth, and everybody will have their own angle on things, and that will gain a following in itself, and supporters. And like, there are moments of insight and astute observation,
Yeah.
but what it does so well, besides Whataburger, is that it makes you enjoy kind of the ride. It's as good as any kind of distractor. You throw on a
Mhm.
true crime
It's a good
podcast,
thriller,
or
right? Like,
yeah,
and it has something to say, and like I said, it might not, it's pretty heavy hitting, but like not in like a
it's
super
better than
nuanced,
Don't Look
layered
Up.
way.
Like,
But
I
yeah,
I
I don't
rather take
disagree. Yeah.
this any day of the week, because again, it understands that in order to have that conversation, you can't just preach to the choir. You have
Yeah.
to open
That's
up
fair.
a dialogue to both
Hmm.
sides, and be critical of both sides, but also you can't just simply vilify one. If you're vilifying the other side, but then also trying to make a point by
Yeah.
saying, okay, well, you have to change your ways. Well, the other side isn't going to even listen to you
No, they're just
because
gonna
you're
say
just,
fuck you. Yeah.
yeah, because you're turning them into the monster. And you have to say,
I
like,
think
let's,
both things can work. I think both things can.
yeah,
I've softened on Don't Look Up quite a bit, but I think that the sledgehammer to the face vilifying one side can work, but I think maybe it didn't completely in that. In this, it is a little bit more balanced, and I think that it definitely works just better as a thriller than Don't Look Up worked as a disaster movie as well.
yeah.
And like, not saying that these movies should be exactly apples to apples comparison, but like, I just think this works as a smart, clever thriller and like, or neo noir movie, like you're saying, like neo noir thriller. And it also has that kind of social commentary and political commentary like on top of it, which actually kind of works throughout. And I just really thought the family dynamic was great. Like setting a scene, so many scenes about Whataburger is really funny to me. Like just having that big dramatic scene at a Whataburger parking lot is like funny. And even if you don't know what Whataburger is, and if you don't like even that sequence where they're talking about why they love Whataburger for people who are completely not familiar with Whataburger, I only know it. Shout out to Andy Cortez from Kind of Funny, because Andy is from Texas and he talks about Whataburger a lot on their shows and on podcasts and stuff like that. And it is one of those things of like, if you don't get it, you just don't get it. But if you're from Texas, you fucking love Whataburger. And like, I can even appreciate that part of it too, right? Like, you have this local thing that like the rest of the US or the rest of the world doesn't really understand. And you can't even explain like why it's great, or
It
you
just
can, you don't,
is.
you just don't feel like you even need to, because you're like, what are you talking about? It's Whataburger. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you go get Whataburger if it's right there? Like, that's kind of how I feel about Taco Bell, but like, Taco Bell's not a local thing that's like only in Toronto. If it was, I'm sure I would never shut up about Taco Bell or something like that. We don't, I guess we have that in certain places if someone really liked Harvey's, or, but it's not even like a staple like
I guess
a
Arby's in a
Whataburger
weird way
is.
would be that for us almost, because like there's only
But
a
that's
few
still a
of them
very
in
American
Ontario. No, but
thing
I'm talking
that's
from the
like, yeah.
Canadian point of view, because like
Yeah, like in
if you're
Oshawa where
ever in
we were,
Oshawa,
yeah.
it's like, why not go? It's there, you
Dude,
know.
I had when we came back from river rafting, go listen to the latest episode of the Untitled Movie Podcast. We pulled off, we're like, we're going to get Taco Bell. And off the highway, you know, when you get the highway signs that say what restaurants coming up, they're like, next exit, Taco Bell, Arby's. And I'm like, this is a mad ass exit right here. Because I could go left and go to Arby's, or right to go to Taco Bell. But anyways, Whataburger. Andy talks about it all the time, and I think he talks about the spicy ketchup that they have, and he loves Whataburger. And I think it's just like such a Texan kind of thing. So that sort of inside joke of Whataburger, or maybe like other Americans know that Texans really love Whataburger. Like, even as a Canadian who the only connection I had was Andy Cortez, I still found all the Whataburger stuff very funny, and it made me really want Whataburger and to try it.
And even just like him eating the Frito in Chile, like that's also a
Oh,
very
Frito pie is great too.
southern
Yeah.
thing too. Yeah, and
Have you
it's,
had that?
no, I haven't. I've seen it
Oh
on a
god,
ton
it's
of
good.
like restaurant shows. Like I know there was an episode on one of Anthony Bourdain's shows when he went to the South, and that was one of the things he had. And
Yeah.
it was like a late night, like after you've
Yeah,
gone to the
you can get
bar
it from
kind
like
of
a
thing.
snack truck kind of
Yeah,
thing, or like it's like some people call it like a walking taco, because
yeah.
it's like you can eat it like it's a lot of taco ingredients, but made in a bag of Fritos. There used to be a place in Toronto called Hot Mess, which was Tex-Mex food. And they had a great like Frito pie and stuff that you could get there, where they would or a bag of Doritos too. They do sometimes, they would be like walking nachos, so you can just have this. It's so sloppy and
That should have been the
gross, but it's
original
just
name for
like,
this movie, Walking
yeah.
Nachos.
Yeah.
but
So
but even Boyd
that
Holbrook,
was
I
good
think
too.
is
Oh, I
like,
love Boyd
he's
Holbrook, man.
good.
Thank you for bringing him up, because like
He's a great character actor, and I think that
yeah.
like that's the thing. Like you look at like what he's done with like obviously Logan and things like that, and I feel like he's one of those guys like Ashton Kutcher where
Yeah.
the studio system was kind of putting him or trying to make him the next big thing, and I don't know if it really stuck, but every time he appears in something, he always picks kind of those unexpected parts. And I really love that first scene where he's supposedly driving him back to the airport, and then he kind of tries to convince him to join this crusade and talks about, like when they're at the dinner table about like, getting the internet to do their dirty work for them, and like Reddit to like put out the contract hit, like stuff like that is
Yeah.
very funny. But he's one of those actors where it's like I don't know if he's really a movie star, but he reminds me so much of like a Colin Farrell, where anytime you put him in a supporting role or sort of, a lead in something that's maybe a smaller movie, he does really work well, and he's really underrated.
I totally agree with that. For me, he's on that same level as like Christopher Abbott for me, where um Abbott's got some more leading roles in indie movies and stuff like that, but like I'll always be more interested when I see his name pop up, because I always know that like even if the movie's not great or something like that, like Boyd Holbrook is one of those guys that I'm like, "Oh, I'm always curious to see what he's doing," because I always end up thinking he's pretty good in everything that I watch. And Logan is the thing that recently that I'm like, man, he is the unsung hero of that movie, where I feel like he is such a great villain in that movie. And but anything I see him pop up. I didn't see Beckett. Did you end up watching Beckett
No,
with
the last thing I saw him in
John
was
David
The
Washington?
Cursed, which I didn't really love, but I didn't think he was bad in it. Even with a kind of like
Yeah.
faux British accent, he was actually more
Right.
interesting and compelling than a lot of the movie was, because I know that film, the director did a rewrite halfway through shooting, so a lot of the film kind of felt disjointed with like what it was going for. But he always, anytime he pops up in an ensemble, or he's a lead in something that's a little bit smaller, there's something there. He's a very
Hmm.
wiry presence, and like there's just something about him where you're not sure whether or not he's going to like you know embrace you or he's going to murder you, and like there's this kind of
Yeah.
unease with him that I think is always interesting. Like even when he's on the phone with Novak, and he's convincing him to come to Texas for the funeral, and like that is interesting as well, because it kind of shows you how
Yeah.
weak-willed Novak is as a person that can't just say no and still ends up going, but then also how you know dogged uh Boyd Holbrook is as a character, as Ty. So yeah,
Hmm.
there's a lot of interesting dynamics going on and a lot of really fascinating characters. It wears its heart on its sleeve when it comes to its references with everything from Coen Brothers movies to again Patty Chayefsky and all that kind of stuff. But I think it works. I think it's one of those kind of little underrated gem kind of movies that it's like you come across it from years from now on like a Netflix or a streamer site, and you watch it or you give it a chance, and you're kind of like, oh, that was a lot better than I expected it to be. And that's kind of like what the whole movie is. It's a film that
Yeah.
if given the chance, you'll be surprised by it in a lot of ways. And it's just, yeah, there's even some fun jokes that dig on Texas as a whole, and like the divide within Texas. Like West Texas doesn't consider itself
Oh, right, like
to
Austin
be
and Dallas.
Dallas and stuff
Like
like that, or even like the dig at Richard Linklater, which I thought was kind of funny.
yeah.
And like the football culture of it all, like there's stuff there
Oh,
that
that
like
was good too. That sequence is great. Yeah.
is stereotypical and cliched, but there's truth in it. But
Yeah.
it doesn't just simply, um, go for the low hanging fruit. Like it's more
Yeah,
complex with how it treats all these characters.
totally. And shout out to Boyd Holbrook, who has the new Indiana Jones movie and the Sandman coming out in like Sandman soon, right? Like in the next couple weeks, I
Yeah,
think. And then which I'll probably check out, but you
Neil
never know
Gaiman's one of those
with
guys that I want to like more than I do. He's always someone that's like, yeah, I like a lot of the same stuff that you do, but I never really got on
I
his
agree.
vibe. Like he's just one of those guys where it's like I like to hear him talk. I like the like what he likes. I just never like what he creates, or I never
Mhm.
completely love it, even though I respect him quite a bit.
Yeah,
And the
totally.
Sandman's one of those things where it's like, I remember reading some of it and I was like, yeah, it's
I know people
fine.
love it, but
Yeah, they
I
swear by it. I know just Neil Gaiman fans in general where they're just like I like Coraline. I think Coraline's probably the
yeah.
best thing that he's done. But I think part of that is Henry Selick as well. So
Yeah. And then yeah, Indiana Jones. I guess reteaming with James Mangold, right? Too.
yeah,
So I'm all for that. So excited. Anyways, Vengeance, pretty good movie. Eric, what are you giving it out of 5?
I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 5, a solid 3.5.
I am also going to give it a very, very solid 3.5. Like Eric said, not a movie you necessarily need to rush out and go see in theaters, but um, if Saturday afternoon you're bored, you've seen everything else. Like, I mean, you're not going to make a bad choice here, whether you wait for streaming or you pick it up. It's probably going to do that 45-day release thing too, because it's focus features, so it won't be too long till it's on streaming, but I think like it's a great matinee movie. Like I think like if you're a film fan like us and love going to the movies randomly like on a weekend afternoon, like this is a great choice. So
Or a
go
true
check it
crime
out.
podcast fan. Like I think you
Yeah,
will enjoy
that's
kind of
also
the
very true.
beats
Yeah,
that it hits with that. Like it's again, the mystery stuff isn't really the most compelling, but it's enough of a hook to kind of get you interested in the storyline.
yeah,
And again, the Shaw family, we didn't really even talk about um uh J. Smith Cameron, who's on
she's great.
Succession right
Love her in
now and has
Succession. Yeah,
been which maybe that could be something that is like if somebody from the South is looking at it, it's like, why'd you cast a New Yorker over you
sure.
know
Yeah,
but again, like the performances are good. It's more empathetic than you would think it is, and it's also more biting and satirical and not afraid to poke fun at everybody, and does so in a way that is both sincere but also funny. And yeah, Ashton Kutcher, man, like who would have thought he had that in him?
I did not. And it makes me excited for that 90s show because I read that article that
He's playing the same character.
yeah, everyone's coming back for it. So oh, playing the same character from
Well,
this. Yeah.
almost
Yeah,
everybody.
sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Everyone who's not a total shitbag is
Yeah.
coming back. We're referencing the other guy I mentioned earlier, that we won't get into, but I do want Whataburger now too. Am I looking at like, is it only in Texas? I think it's only in Texas locations.
And even
Um,
it's kind of like In and Out, right, in LA. Like it's like the thing that
yeah,
you
where
go
In and Out
to.
is like a Californian thing, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm looking now in the US, it's probably only in Texas, I'm assuming. Like, say I put in
All my
Buffalo, New
exes are
York,
dead in Texas.
no locations found. It's probably, yeah, only in Texas. So when
And
I
we
go to
wouldn't get it,
Texas,
like, yeah, like it's one of those things as well, like even though the like it would probably spread throughout the US first, franchising wise, and we would probably get it like years from now, because we only just started getting like Popeyes recently, right? Or like in the
yeah,
last
10 years or
10
so. I
years.
would
Yeah.
say 10 years. Yeah. Because I no longer, because I remember getting Popeyes. It takes a long time here. Now, this is welcome to fast food talk. What was I going to call it? Trash Train. That's going to be a segment on the show eventually.
I thought you were going to
Um,
call it Trash Trail.
uh, Trash Train might be a new segment because I want to get those. I want people to send us garbage. I want
Yeah.
Mountain Dew to be like, Matt, there's a new garbage flavor of
Baja
Mountain Dew.
Blast.
I had a Baja Blast Freeze I talked about. It's great. Um, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, Whataburger. And yeah, we had Popeyes. I remember having it as a kid, but also what happens is that they have different menus. So like if they launch something in the US, we don't get it until like way later. Like the Popeyes chicken sandwich, remember those were popping off, and we didn't get we I remember me and you ordering it right when it was available at my place in Oshawa when I was down there. But
Is there any
um
Shake Shacks in Canada, or is that like just like a New York
Shake Shack
American thing
started
as well?
expanding because it was only in New York, and then they opened in Vegas, and I know they're in California now too. So
They were good as
um
well.
Shake Shack is excellent.
Yep.
Shake Shack is fantastic. I don't know what I prefer out of all of them, of the American burger chains. Like we got
I know
Five
Rhett and
Guys. I
Link
remember
like. I
that
think they
was
like Shake Shack more.
yeah. we Five Guys is a perfect example where we only got Five Guys like way later, and we that first one at Yonge and Dundas in Toronto was like a huge deal.
Or
Um,
Jollibee even. Like Jollibee seems to
Jollibee
be
was
something
recently,
that's yeah.
yeah. I didn't like it. Have you had it?
I haven't had it yet. There's one in Ajax. This is really going deep into the weeds. There's one in Ajax that's right across the street from, or in the same plaza as Walmart and Tim Hortons and Wendy's
Ajax
that
used to
I.
have an Applebee's too.
They still
When like,
do. They
oh, they
still
do.
do.
It's still
Oh
there.
yeah, and they had the
Is it
advertisements for
really?
Top Gun Maverick. Oh yeah, baby.
No. Why didn't we
Yes.
go?
I
We have to do that one
we
day
should do
because
when the 4K Blu-ray comes out of Top Gun Maverick, we should do like
yeah.
a special like recording there.
I'm so down because like that is the only Applebee's in like Niagara Falls has some because like people if you might have even left or you're like listening to this garbage. Um Applebee's there was in Niagara Falls is weird because Niagara Falls has like a lot of American chain stuff because it's right over the border and a lot of Americans come to the Canadian side. So they have like IHOP, they had Applebee's, there's a Chili's, I think, in one of them. Where we usually don't have any of these things. But I always remember it being weird that there was an Applebee's in Ajax. Like I just thought it was like weird that it is literally the only Applebee's in Ontario other than Niagara Falls. And then like I remember being at there's an Applebee's or a Chili's in the Calgary airport that I went to. It might have been a Chili's. Um, all these weird American chains that which are very regular to people in the US, but we don't have here.
They're more
Outback
novelties
Steakhouse,
to us.
we have Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah.
We
But the kegs are a version of that, right? Like
yeah, where people in the US wouldn't know what the hell the keg is, but the keg is our chain steakhouse. Ruth's Chris, I think, is an American thing that we have too. Um, what else was I going to bring up? IHOP, we don't have. We have lots of Denny's.
what's the waffle place that's really popular in LA?
Waffle House?
No,
Yeah,
no,
it's
it's like
Waffle House, isn't it?
no, like Roscoe's.
Oh, okay.
It's a
Yeah, no,
really
I
good one
thought
in
that's like a
LA.
small thing.
Yeah, that's an
Um,
amazing place to go to.
Olive Gardens, we don't have.
We used to.
Um,
We used to have Olive Garden though, a long
y-
time ago, like in the
yeah.
90s.
And they still weirdly, I was at the grocery store with Nevis the other day, and they sell Olive Garden salad dressing, which I think is so interesting when it's like not a thing here, but people still know it well enough to buy the salad dressing at the
Yeah.
grocery store.
And then Jack in the Box is another one, right, that we don't have.
Remember they tried opening Jack in the Boxes here? No, what was that they tried opening here? The one with the fucking they used to have the women in bikinis on the eating
Oh,
the
that's
burgers
Carl's.
on
Isn't that
Carl's.
Carl's, right?
Carl's
With like
Jr.
because it was like that. It was infamous for that Paris Hilton
Yeah.
commercial, right? Like that was like the big
So they
thing.
opened a Carl's Jr. in that old HMV on Queen Street, and then that bombed as well. It's so interesting when these like American chain restaurants open something in Canada and just don't work. Like people don't want it.
Tim
Like
Hortons has too
it's
strong of a hold on the
but Tim
Canadian
Hortons is
public.
owned by Burger King now, right? Like
Yeah.
I think, and but it's
Well,
just
even Burger
fascinating to
King.
me.
Burger King is like, even though there are Burger Kings in Canada, it's probably like the fourth or fifth place you would go and like nobody talks about Burger King in Canada, you're either going to go to McDonald's, Wendy's, if there's an Arby's around you, like you'll
Which
pick
are all
that.
American
Taco
chains
Bell,
that did,
KFC.
yeah, those all made their way here and succeeded.
Yeah, Burger King too, but again, Burger King's like one that it seems more popular in the
I feel like
US
when we
than
were kids, Burger King was more like I remember getting the Crown and getting the Burger King kids meal and stuff like that was like a hip alternative to the Happy Meal. I feel like when you were a little bit older, I used to get like the big kids meal, and then
Burger King
like
being hip is funny.
well, compared to like when you're a kid, like when I rebelled against my dad and started drinking Pepsi products for a little while, right? Like my dad was a big Coke guy. And then
Yeah.
as a kid, how I was like, I need to rebel against my dad. I started drinking Pepsi products. And I remember him being very disappointed in me. I was a big wild cherry Pepsi and Pepsi Max kid.
I also
I
think it's
collect
like I think it's maybe also how like you're marketed as a kid as well, like what like toys or like kids meal exclusives they have. Like I remember Burger King got the Pokemon stuff,
Yep,
and that
that
was
was a
kind of
huge
like
reason why I went there. The
Yeah.
Pokemon, the first movie stuff, yeah. And then for me, Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut, the Holy Trinity, um, were all one company, right?
Yeah.
So they always had like whatever one would have, they all would have. So I remember them getting the Casper toys for the
Yes.
Casper
The puppet
movies, which
hands.
yeah, were amazing. And
Flipper.
Flipper, Star Wars was huge when they got all the prequel stuff. So like that's one thing, like I want to do a whole episode on movie tie-ins to like fast food restaurants. We don't get enough of them anymore. I know the Happy Meal still exists. You get cool toys once in a while, but you don't get the adult like collector's cup shit anymore.
You're talking
And
like
I
the
know I bring
Batman
this like
Forever
yeah, like
glasses and
or like the dino-sized fucking McDonald's fries, which would have like a stupid ass dinosaur cup and shit like that. Like, or at Pizza Hut getting some garbage plastic cup with my meal or something like that. Like, I know you get that at the movie theater now, and that's probably maybe like an exclusive thing that they have, or maybe like we make fun of the Papa John's Uncharted thing, and like the Batman calzone was the last ridiculous one, but like you don't see like the big boys really doing it anymore. You don't see the McDonald's or the Taco Bells really getting into that game anymore, which is interesting.
always love the
Maybe
commercials
Whataburger.
too. Like I remember distinctly, I think my first like promotion that I remember quite fondly was the Batman Returns
Yeah,
stuff at
exactly.
McDonald's.
Yep, that's the
Because like
first
I
thing I
remember like
remember
the
too.
penguin in the little kind of duck mobile that you could get, and when you put it on the floor, it had like the umbrella kind of like
Yep,
pointed at it, so it
yep.
spun. All that
And the
stuff I
commercials were
remember.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then the Batman Forever and Batman and Robin ones I really really remember too.
Flipper was
But
the
yeah,
weird one because I remember you
Flipper
could
was
get
good.
because Flipper and Casper were very similar, where like you could get the puppets, the hand shark, like the hammerhead shark, and Flipper, and I think Flipper you could put it in water and like there was like it almost
Like
acted like a
glowing.
super soaker because
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
Casper
yeah, yeah, yeah.
glowed in the
Glowed
dark
in the
like
dark. That's what I
and the
remembered.
three
Yeah.
brothers, yeah.
Good shit, man.
And then
Bring it
Taco
back.
Bell did really well with episode 1 also. Like I remember going to Taco Bell a lot during the Phantom Menace
Same.
promotion because they
I
had
think
like
that's where my love of Taco Bell came from, to be honest. I owe it to George Lucas.
because like I remember like they had like there was the one thing that I had to have, which was like it was Boba Fett, like a Boba Fett figure that was kind of like vertical, and he had like a balance thing that you could put him on, and the balance kind of stand was like the pit,
Oh my
and it
god,
was
look at
kind
these
of
ridiculous cups that you could get. I had these. Man, like $64 on eBay. That's pretty good. I might buy these. I'm
look what
kidding.
vengeance brought out in us.
I mean, I think it makes sense because of the tie-in, right? Of like
Yeah.
the Sebulba cup. Oh my god, I need the Watto cup topper and cup. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I need to buy this stupid thing and drink my iced coffee out of it in the mornings or something. Um, I gotta send this to you. And anyone, you can just Google Phantom Menace cup toppers. Oh, they had like the pogs and shit you would get or whatever, right? Like those
Oh
little
yeah.
like pog things, and they had this mat. Oh, it was the defeat the dark side and win. So it was kind of like Monopoly at McDonald's popped off like crazy in like when we were kids, and it's still a big thing now. But I'm gonna send you this. I need it. 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 As I'm sure like people love this stuff, right? And we talk about photos. Um, I definitely need that Watto cup to drink iced coffee out of every day. Um, that's all I want. Anyways, there's a Sebulba one. I'll get you the Anakin Skywalker. Now
Yippee.
this is iced coffee. You can say every morning, man. All right, everyone. I would love to do a full episode on
We should. We
movie
should.
memorabilia tie-in. I would love that. I would do a whole show on that. The other thing about this movie, to bring it back to Vengeance before we sign off, it made me like, I think there's so many different styles of podcasts, and it made me interested in making something that wasn't just two people talking. You know what I mean? Like, I know that there's a whole subsect of, produced podcasts where there's a script and music and voiceover narration and all this stuff, that it made me go, I always had this idea of a documentary I wanted to make, but I'm like, oh, I could make this into a podcast. And I know that's like, people make fun of everyone who says that. I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, whatever, make fun of us. I don't care. But it made me go, oh, if I ever did another show, I would try to do something like that. That was more like, I want to put together, not exploit people or anything like that. But put together like a documentary style podcast or something like that.
It would have to be some sort of like investigative piece on like one of the most ridiculous things that maybe
Yes.
like obsessed you as a kid. Like, I know you've always talked about it before, but like even like something like an episode of like Are You Afraid of the Dark? You know, like
Yeah.
something where it's like, you know, the episode where the child's cold, like being freaky, like how that kind of came to be. Like you have to kind of
Yeah.
almost do the Earl Morris style where you zoom in on the most minute detail or something that maybe you only are so obsessed with, and then start there and then kind of, you know,
Get
expand
even
from
more
that.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. The other
Like
one
American
I had,
Vandal in a way, I guess.
Yeah. American Vandal, but a podcast version, which I'm sure that exists and stuff too, like satire. But I always wanted to do about the theatrical experience too, and call it Is Cinema Dead or Cinema is Dead, or maybe both of those things, and talk to like,
Who killed cinema?
Yeah, basically do like a murder podcast about cinema being dead. Like, I think that would be funny and fun. Like, do it like Serial, do it like this, and like interview projectionists and the head of different film formats, and Ellis Jacob from Cineplex, and the head of Netflix, the head of Blockbuster, like all of this stuff. Like, interview these people and put it into a podcast and see like what killed cinema, and like, but or say like, is cinema actually dead? Because that's just, I like that statement when people say cinema's dead whenever you see something like whatever, Marvel being popular or whatever. It's just like
Streamers kind of being the
streamers,
go-to
yeah, like,
choice for entertainment.
right. And I think it could be like an interesting investigative, but with our own silly kind of stupid spin on it, where I wouldn't take it too seriously. But I think that would be fun. So will I ever make that? I'll talk about it a lot, and I'll probably never do it, but I would like to. So remember
Just like,
this
Are
show
You
right
Afraid
here.
of the Dank?
Are You Afraid of the Dank will happen one day. I just like, weed is one of those things too, where it's just like, do I want to put it so out there? You know what I mean? Like, I know it's legal and it's fine, but like, it's not legal everywhere. So it's just one of those things where it's like, do I want to be a host of a stoner podcast? Yes. But do I want to put it that out there? I think it's a great title. I would love to just get high and watch Are You Afraid of the Dark? I think it would be fun as hell.
I mean, it's less niche than the Are You Afraid of the Mank podcast.
Last one episode. All right, bye everyone. Oh,
100%.
go.
What are you doing?
Go listen to our other stuff. We have other reviews. I should do an outro. If you've gotten this far, you probably already know who we are. Nope. Russo Brothers, Gray Man, Love and Thunder. Latest episode talking about Comic-Con over on Untitled Movie Podcast. Go check those out. One-stop shop over at Letterboxd, Untitled_cast. Follow me at Matt Rohrbeck everywhere.
And I'm Eric Marchin. You can find more of my video reviews on rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
100%.
100%.